Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Fear Fighter. I am your host, Shannan Mondor. Over the past few weeks, I have recently launched the new series of this podcast, which I have called You Are Not the Only One. Because so many of us have been forced or guided by the universe to sit in our stillness. It is at those times that the universe talks and guides us. We receive messages. And in those messages, there's power, learning, and growth. And in those times, we need to share. And the reason I say that is because these experiences is what helps others. My main goal in this podcast is to spread the word of these lessons in hopes of helping others to heal and to find their greatness within. I have personally experienced many of these times of silence. I have learned to embrace these moments as I know this is when I am to receive these messages. And after all, I would not be here if I didn't listen to the messages, because those moments are definitely what freed me from my addiction to alcohol. And with that being said, I have an extremely very special guest by the name of Debbie Rosenfelt. So Debbie, welcome. How are you?
Thank you,
today?
Shannan. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. And yeah, I'm excited to hear your words of wisdom and what you learned in your moment of silence and stillness. So if you could please share that with all of us, that would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that story. So it was actually it didn't start off as silence. But it's the moment that brought me to that space of having to be in silence and into being within. And that was December 20th, 2008, when I was notified that my son died by suicide.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So it was a Saturday morning, and it was just 5 days before Christmas. And so we were preparing, to go shopping. And my other son, Brian, had just opened his first business. It was a gym. It was a franchise that he bought, Snap Fitness, and he had been into it 8 months. And so it just so happened that day it was also starting to snow. So he reached out and said, "Hey, Mom, could you come pick me up because his car didn't drive in the snow?" And so I said, "Yeah, I'd be happy to. And then what we'll do is we'll drop you off, and then we'll go shopping, and then we'll come pick you back up at around 2:00." And so we did exactly that. And we were shopping, coming home, and I called him and said, "Hey, Bri, just wanted to let you know we're going to be dropping everything off at the house, and then we will be down to pick you up." And so he said, "Okay, great." And so then not even maybe 15 seconds later, he's calling me back, and he said, "Hey, Mom, the police are here and they're asking for you." And I'm going, wow, that's bizarre. Gosh, I'm wondering if I'm in trouble. And that's exactly what I thought. And so then I thought, okay, Todd, we just have to go down to the gym. And so we go down to the gym, and then I walk into the office, and there's no police officer. I said, "Well, where's the police?" And he said, "Oh, he's out there." And so the officer came back in, and what felt very odd to us, he was closing the doors of the gym. Well, the office had a very open ceiling. So whether you close the doors or not, people were still going to hear. So I wasn't understanding, I wasn't computing why he was closing the doors. And then he just looked at me and he asked me, he said, "Do you have a son by the name of Ken Jones?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he says, "Does he live at 5433 North Pierce Lane in Prescott Valley, Arizona?" I said, "Yes, he does." And then that's when he proceeded to share with me that, "I'm so sorry, but your son died by suicide." And we were just in complete shock. And what wasn't making logical sense to me is, and I said it to him, I looked at him in shock and I said, how would you know? How would you know? And he said, well, the Prescott Valley Police have contacted us and asked us to reach out to you. And I'm just going, this can't be true. This internally, I'm thinking this can't be true. And my husband, Todd, was standing there. Brian was there, as well as his girlfriend, Kelsey. And we were just all stunned. And the officer said, what we could do is go back up to your home. And then what we'll do is we'll call the Prescott Valley Police so you could have a conversation with them. And so I said, okay. And we were just all in tears and driving home. And we get home and we come into the door and we sit down and we call the Prescott Valley Police. And they shared with me that a woman had come walking by Kenny's home and they saw something down on the ground. And because she was going to pick up her son for an overnight stay, and that's where she found Kenny, and she turned around and called the police. So this was around a little after 2:00 in the afternoon, and it all went down like about 8:30 in the morning. So it had to have been in the middle of the night. So in the meantime, after we call the police, I am just like lost. And what do we do? And I said, oh my gosh. So I immediately called my best friend and I shared with her. And then I needed to call my sister and let her know. But I wanted to, I couldn't do it over the phone with my parents. I had to go down there because we live in the same area.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I needed to call his dad and his stepmom who lived down in California. They lived in Petaluma, and they still live in Petaluma. And so it's just so happened that Brian, their dad, was not home. And I said, Bonnie, I need you to get Brian home. And I need to talk to Brian. And I can't even remember today if I told her yet or if I waited. I must have told her. I said, I need to talk to Brian. I just need to talk to Brian. And just like it was the worst news that you could tell anybody over the phone. And I just felt awful. And so anyway, so then later on that morning, I had to contact like the medical examiner's office and figure out, how do we do this? What do I do? How do I find a funeral home? And, all that. And then went down to my parents' house and had to share the news with them. So everybody was just left in shock. Well, what was also happening here was it started snowing, and it was in 2008. So it was one of the biggest snowstorms that we had in a very, very long time. So we had to process it, like, what do I do? How do I find a funeral home? And how do we get out of here? And trying to book a flight out was really difficult because you couldn't get through because everybody else was trying to get out before
Because I'm sorry, because where was your son at the time that this happened, and where were you?
Yeah. So I live in Edmonds, Washington. Yeah.
Okay.
And he lived in Prescott Valley, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to do our best and that was the biggest question. How are we going to get there because of the snow was coming?
Right.
So, but still finding a funeral home, and the question, you're so lost, you have no idea what to do.
Well, you're in total shock because you're still not in believing that it's
Exactly.
actually happened.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm
Exactly.
just so sorry.
Yeah. So we eventually yeah, sorry, just having a
No,
difficult
definitely
time.
take your time. Absolutely. Just take your
Yeah.
time.
So my husband came up with the idea. He was into trains at the time. So he said, well, we could take the train down. And I looked at him and I said, Todd, I don't want to take the train. It's just going to take forever. But it ended up that was the only choice
Mhm.
that we had. So we were able to book the last car that actually you're able to, a sleeping car that you could be in, and it held 3 people, and it had its own private bathroom. So, and so what we did was we took the train from Seattle down to Sacramento, and my uncle and aunt lived down in Sacramento. So I reached out to my uncle and asked him if he could pick us up at the train station and then take us directly to the airport. And then we could fly out of Sacramento into Phoenix, Arizona, and then we would have to drive for about an hour and a half up to Prescott Valley. So we had to rent a car. We had to get that all figured out, and I did find a funeral home, which they're very, very kind people, and we arrived there on Christmas Eve. So it took literally 4 days to figure this all out, and you're in absolute shock. So, and Kenny owned his own home in Prescott Valley. He went to Embry-Riddle School, the university there, and got his aeronautical science degree. And it's just like, what do we do? How do we do this? And so, a friend of mine had her dad, her dad's wife owned a home in Prescott Valley and allowed us to stay there. They weren't in it, but allowed us to stay there so we could have privacy and not have to worry about being in a hotel or a motel. And Kenny and Brian's dad and his stepmom Bonnie. So Brian and Bonnie flew from Petaluma to Phoenix and drove up to Prescott Valley. And so when we arrived, we went directly to the funeral home, and it was 4:30 in the afternoon. So that's where I was able to see my son for the last time, and because he wanted to be cremated, so I wanted to, respect and honor his wishes.
Mhm.
And in those 4 days, my other son Brian found his. Kenny left us a couple of letters and it through email, and so Brian was able to find that. We were able to access, his email account and all that. So Kenny was very, very generous in leaving us a couple of notes, and basically he was providing us instructions of what to do, and then he each wrote a note to each one of us, which was very thoughtful. And that's the thing, Kenny was a very thoughtful individual. I mean, even when he made the choice of what he was doing, he made sure that he was all dressed warm so he wouldn't be cold, which was so funny in thinking that, but he was just very thoughtful, very methodical in processing and thinking this through. So my heart just hurt. My heart hurt for him, and my heart hurt for all of us, but it's just like he hurt so bad that was the choice that he made. And so we had to we were able to get into his home and we did it on Christmas Day. And so just having to go through what is his thoughts, and the police had been through his home because of doing that, and so we ended up the funeral home was very gracious, and they did the cremation actually on Christmas Day, so we could pick up his ashes on the 26th and then fly back home. And then we had to figure out how we were going to, we had to go back to pack up Kenny's things and move everything up to Seattle, and what were we going to do with everything? So anyway, it was an arduous process.
That I'm okay, I will shed a tear. And through every experience that we go through in life,
Yes.
it's really sad to say that there's a learning lesson, whether our experience be just horrible, like what you have gone through, or the happy and joyous times that we experience in life. There's a learning lesson. And my belief is that we are to come down on earth to oh, excuse me, I just feel for you.
It's okay, Shannan. It's okay. I understand. Yeah.
And then for
It's
you to be so strong to talk about this openly, I just thank you for doing this. And I just, the strength and the power that you have is just unbelievable.
thank you, Shannan.
But as I was saying, my belief is that we are to come down to earth, and that we are spirit, and we are only here for a very, very short time.
Yes.
And our
Yes.
body is our vessel.
Yes.
And so we need to take darn good care of this vessel that we have within us. And for us to grow and to nurture, we need to have all these experiences.
Yes.
And then from that, we teach others.
Yes.
And then we help them to grow.
That's right.
And I just look at your story, and I just think, wow, like your son definitely touched you in so many different areas of your life, and there was growth there, and it's vice versa. And now you sharing with us, how we are going to learn and grow from that.
Yes.
But from this particular experience, what is it that you learned? What brought out the strength? What strengths? Because that definitely is the key that I can see. It brought you to a higher level of strength that you needed to get to grow as an individual. And what is it that you learned from this whole process?
Well, what I learned was I learned a lot about myself through this whole process. And so all the doing had to get done first.
Mm-hmm.
And then when all the doing, meaning like moving his things up here to Seattle, so closing up his house, and we were just going to let it go to the bank. And then allowing myself after the services, that began the process of me being able to grieve. And so basically each morning, and at that time I was working full time as a CFO for a company here in the area that I live in. And I had to literally spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day to prepare myself to go out into the world and what that looked like. So prior to Kenny, leaving this earth, I had this ritual that I would go and train every single day, at least, I think it was 3 to 5 days a week with a trainer. And then I had this ritual of taking my vitamins, just drinking lemon water and all that. So what I learned was I needed to stick to my disciplines to help me prepare me for my day. So then after I did the workout, the training, my vitamins, taking a shower, having breakfast, I would sit down and I would spend literally anywhere from 1 to 2 hours in quiet time, in silence, or I would journal and I would cry, or I would pray, or I would read a specific book. So there was a couple of books that came my way. One was I Wasn't Ready to Say Goodbye, which just basically acknowledged my feelings, and what I was experiencing was normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then another book that I read that was so poignant at that time was The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And that just helped me process as well. And it took a long time. But what I learned was about self-care
Right.
And what was also occurring is God was bringing me people into my life that something similar, some kind of loss occurred, and I was just to be there and be silent with them and just acknowledge. I'll never forget a time when I was flying down to San Diego for work, and there was one last person that we were waiting for, and she was to sit next to me. Well, it ended up being this woman who just lost her grandfather. And so through the whole plane ride, I just talked to her and asked her questions about her grandfather. And it just brought such joy out for her to share with another human, a stranger, about her grandfather and her family. And incidences like that would just show up. And so it's like people just want to be able to share their story and just be with them through their moments and to honor the process of their grief and their sorrow. And so now I am through my work. So now this was the 14th, December was the 14 year anniversary. So, but prior to that, so I now work as a volunteer chaplain for South County Fire in our area. And I'm also, I started my business back in 2015, CEO from the Heart, which is about serving leaders and CEOs and individuals who have experienced tragic loss or are in deep sorrow. And I just have this gift of being able to hold space, be with people who are going through a really difficult time and just listen to them. And then guide them through the process of how just to be with their grief and be in their own silence to help them grow, to be able to help them move forward. So for me, it's all about helping leaders move forward, creating new possibilities. And basically what we're doing is creating a whole new normal,
Right.
because that's what I had to do,
Right.
was
Right.
create a whole new normal.
Right. See, and that's one thing that I really find with me now that I've released my addiction to alcohol is same thing.
Yeah.
I'm creating my new normal, and I'm
Yes.
creating my new normal for my children, for
Yes.
the next generation, because I have now broke that I call it the generational curse within my family.
Yes.
Because we're all stemmed from addiction, and
Yes.
that's I I I've got a new normal now, and it's yeah, it's just amazing what we learn throughout that whole process of the silence. And what you had said too about, people were coming to you, that needed your presence. And I really find that with me too.
Yeah.
There were situations too, because I needed to totally transform my life 100%. They're
Yeah.
absolutely 100%. So people would also be coming into my life that I would notice that things that I didn't like. But it wasn't that particular person. It was
Right.
things that I was noticing within myself in others,
Yeah.
which brought me to the forefront of, oh my goodness, these are the things that I don't like about myself. Right. So that was just a real learning and healing all in itself, too. So it plays both ways.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting about, our journey on earth. And you and I, we think very much alike because, of course, like attracts alike.
Yeah.
And I just look at life so totally different now, like totally different than even what I
Yes.
did 3 years ago. People that think they know me, they don't know me anymore at all, because I've grown. I'm not that person that I was. And that's what we are meant to do. We are meant to grow. We are meant to teach people.
Yes.
So go through the process of what you would do, with you helping others.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've actually created a concept, if you will, called the path of grace. And it's just taking a step forward. And there's three different sections that we work on. And the first step is writing their own hero's journey. And it's actually honoring and respecting what they're experiencing and processing in the moment. So it's just there's this process of just writing and speaking to and being with your hero's journey, but also then just giving them some resources, specific resources to help them, be in the silence, to be in the quiet, to allow them to listen to themselves, and also also about persistence, being committed to self, being committed through the process. So, because as you will know, when it comes to fear, people are fearful of being with their sadness or grief or their anxiety, and they want to push it away. And no, it's actually about embracing and being with, because whatever we resist will persist until we're ready to deal with it.
Right.
And so it's listening. So, for example, it's listening to some music, some quiet meditation music that speaks to the individual. So for me, what I use is I use water. So I use meditations with water. I'm a great, huge fan with using Synctuition, which is an app that works on both sides of the brain. And it's very calming and very soothing, as well as it enhances our intuition. And what our intuition does is it speaks to us and tells us what we need. And when we listen to ourselves and what our higher power is telling us, which I consider the intuition a higher power, it's always talking to us. We just have to learn to listen to it.
And that is so true when you say that. Like, I can remember when I was going through my whole process of the addiction, and I was drinking my quietness away because I didn't want to hear my quietness, right? Because it was just all jumble. That was when I was relating that to my bad thoughts all the time. So I would try and numb when I would be drinking. But oh my goodness, now I absolutely love my stillness and I love my silence, because I now, through that whole process, whether I wanted to hear it or not, my intuition was telling me things, and sometimes things that I didn't even want to know about myself, but I needed to know those things about myself so I could get to where I am today. Now I wouldn't change it for the world. There's no way, because I truly know who I am. And you know what? There is nothing in this world that I don't know, because I'm in control of it now, right? And that is the biggest, greatest gift that I can give to myself. And that's what I want so many people to understand out there, is when you are in your stillness, you really need to embrace it. That's when you need to show your feelings. If you're going to cry, cry. If you're going to be angry, be angry.
Exactly.
You need to express your feelings, because if you don't express your feelings, they get suppressed. And then what happens? That's when the mental illness starts happening. That's when the drug addiction starts happening. That's when your body, the stress within your body, that's where the disease or dis-ease comes in. And people need to really start and to understand that you need to start expressing who you are. And that's why with me, I am so truthful now. Like I will speak my truth. And that is the absolutely most freeing thing that I could have ever done to myself, is I am who I am, and I embrace who I am. And it's just amazing. And that's the same process with you now too. And look at all the people that you're helping.
Yeah. It's also really important to make sure that we are in tune to our body. So we're in exercise with our body, if it's outside walking in Mother Nature or if it's at the gym, but it's literally using our body because our bodies were made to move,
Right.
but our bodies know before our mind knows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. So, when you work with your clients and that, do you do it on Zoom? Do you do it in person? Like if someone wants to reach out to you, Debbie, how would they reach out?
Yeah. Thank you. I mainly, no,
How
it's
does that
all,
whole
yeah.
process work with you? If you can please explain that to me and my audience. So,
You bet. Thank you. So it's all online. So it
okay.
would be it's through Zoom, because I'm here to serve throughout the world.
Oh, right.
And it's not just in our area. And I specifically um, prefer online.
Mm-hmm.
And so people can reach out to me. My website is debbierosenfelt.com, or they can email me at debbier@ceofromtheheart.com. Yeah.
And are you also on social media like Facebook or Instagram,
Yeah. I'm
LinkedIn,
on
anything like
Facebook and
that?
Instagram, as well as LinkedIn,
Okay.
all under CEO from the Heart. Yeah.
Okay. And I will also put this, all these notes, so everybody hearing out there can actually go to the notes at the bottom of the podcast and they will see all your information too, Debbie, just to let you know and just to let all the audience members know too. So, wow, you have been definitely on quite the journey. And so from this process, what is the one thing that you would like to, express and let people know out there that you've learned through your journey that you want to pass on to others?
Yeah. So I have some compassion and grace for oneself. There is no one way that has to be done. You do it your way.
Hmm.
And it's just knowing what speaks to you. And if Mother Nature speaks to you, then go be in Mother Nature. If water speaks to you, go be with water. If you're someone that likes to exercise, that's a great way to exert your feelings and your emotions is through your body. So kindness, compassion, and grace. And if people want to as well, they can sign up you get a nine different emails through signing up for the Path of Grace that just guides you through the process of listening to self, listening to your heart, listening to what you need. And it's just, again, listening to self. I'm repeating that, but I want to get that message across. It's
And
really,
that is very, very important, because that is the one thing I can say, when I'm in my silence or I'm actually guided. I know
yes,
myself so well, and I've got the connection between me and spirit. I know when I'm guided, supposed to go to silence, because
yes,
that's where I know that I'm going to be getting the messages that they're trying to tell me. So
yes,
I absolutely 100% know what you are talking about for sure there.
yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
And you're right. You can't express it enough, right?
yeah,
For
yeah,
sure. So,
yeah.
oh, wow. Debbie, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story and for being a part of my podcast.
Well,
And
thank you
just
for
being,
asking. Thank you.
yes, and just being in our presence. Is there anything else that you would like to say, or for some closing words for everybody else out there to hear?
Yeah, I'll just go back to just really important to spend time with yourself
Mhm.
and listen to what you need. Don't listen to the outside world or what people are trying to tell you. Just listen to self. And
Yes.
that is number one.
Hmm. Hmm. And those are very good words of wisdom. So Thank you very much again, Debbie. And like I said, for everybody out there that's listening on the podcast, that just go to the very bottom to the notes and all the information will be there for your availability. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannan.